thought I would talk about charitable giving and your budget. There are tons of wonderful charities out there focused on helping people. And of course, to name a few, the Red Cross, Salvation Army. Around here we have the Crusade for Children. There are charities dedicated towards cancer research and finding a cure, helping the homeless, helping veterans, feeding and clothing the homeless, taking care of animals, finding homes for animals, all kinds of wonderful charities out there. However, when budgeting for a charity, when it's a part of a disciplined budget, contributions can be more meaningful and intentional. They can be more impactful too. Likewise, as your situation improves through eliminating debt and building your income, net worth, and wealth, the more help you can actually be to the organizations that you might care about. An example of this is, like for us, we give 10% to charities through our church. Our church does wonderful work trying to help feed people, especially with disaster relief, things of that nature. We've participated in a lot of those activities. I went down to Louisiana after Katrina hit and helped clear trees and try and get things set back up so that life could get back to normal for those folks. We've also done all kinds of help. When tornadoes came through, we put together care packages for individuals, all kinds of stuff. So on a grand scale, we had a big time kind of assembly line thing going on in the gym at my church. Anyway, the importance that you put on charitable giving will determine where in your budget it needs to be. Is it a primary concern? Is it a primary item like saving and investing for you? Like I've said a few times, for us, our donations to the church come first before we do anything else. Or is it more of something that you take care of after everything else? Is it more of an afterthought where it might come after, say, bills and necessities? Either way, there's nothing wrong with that. I am not making a judgmental statement. I'm just saying that where it ranks for you determines where you would put it in your budget. Now, doing all this, talking about all this reminds me also that your donations, I was talking with my daughter, should be kind of two-part. There are large donations that you will probably make by check and maybe even take advantage of the tax write-off for, or tax deduction for. And then there's smaller charitable giving that you have. Things like cash for spontaneous giving. Again, like I mentioned, the Crusade for Children, the fire departments will set up what they call roadblocks at the intersections or whatever, where they hold their boot out and you could drop in some change, or they could go door to door at sometimes right before they're getting ready to go and present the money. There could be other times. Had somebody come up to me at the grocery store the other day. Hey man, do you have some cash for so that I could get some groceries? This woman looked like she really was in kind of dire straits, certainly more dire than me. And Salvation Army buckets around Christmas time. You might be inclined to drop in some coin. Well, even those donations to charity should be factored into your budget. So there should be the major ones, and then there should be the more minor ones. The minor ones you probably want to take out of miscellaneous funds, but it still should be a line item if you're doing a serious budget. Now, I want to add a note of caution. Charitable giving should never be something that you do to your own detriment. It shouldn't be something that causes you to go into debt or puts you at risk of losing your home. It's one thing to intentionally give your home to somebody. It's another thing to be driven into debt because of your charitable giving to the point where they come and foreclose on your home. And that's the distinction I'm trying to make. We actually have a close personal family friend who is going through this situation right now with her mom. And it's a case where she has donated so much that she now receives things on a regular basis. And because certain groups know that she will not say no, they're sending her things constantly. She's receiving several a day all through the week. Then she receives phone calls and everything else. And because she is a kind, gentle soul, she has turned around and sent each and every one of them money. So much so that she is well beyond retirement age and still having to work because she has no savings, has no money set aside, has gone into debt, is at risk of it's put her home at risk. So, just a note of caution, do not let your charitable giving get to that point. You can do more the better you manage your budget. You could do more longer than you would in those type of situations. And I guess while I'm adding notes of caution, I might as well add another one. When it comes to charities, do your research. With any charity, there's going to be some overhead costs, right? They probably have some sort of brick and mortar locations that they will have to do some fundraising. There will be people that have to be in charge of either bringing in the money and managing it, or also people that are in charge of distributing it and determining who's worthy, how great the need is, or buying up the supplies and putting boots on the ground to distribute them, okay? So, with charities, there's overhead and administration costs, there's fundraising, and then there's the actual programs themselves, the work itself. Well, you want most of the money that you give to go to the work itself. You don't want it eaten up in administration costs. Now, how do you figure out what is what? Okay, well, I mentioned the Red Cross, for instance. Ooh, a crack-a-book. Nice. I'll have to check that out. The Red Cross, 90% of what you give actually goes to their programs to help people. Only 10%, I believe it's 10 or 12%, is used for overhead, administration, things like that. Okay? And I'm going to put a link to an article from Consumer Reports that addresses this concern, as well as a link to an organization called CharityWatch.org. CharityWatch.org actually ranks various charitable organizations, has a grading scale, ranks them in accordance with how much of the money actually goes where. And they also give you some idea of how much of the money that you donate in turn goes around to fundraising. Now, the reason I keep saying this is you guys might remember back, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s, there was a group that supposedly was organized to feed African kids, right? All the starving Ethiopians and whatnot. In fact, there's a South Park episode that was kind of inspired by this whole deal with Starvin' Marvin. But not to get too far down that, the point that I'm making is it was discovered that 70 to 80% of the donations that actually went to the organization were turned right around and spent on more quote-unquote fundraising. Only about 10 to 15% of the money that was given was actually going towards feeding starving African children. So that's what I mean by please do your research on these. Charitable giving is wonderful. It is something that I encourage. But do it smart. Do your homework. If you're going to give a decent chunk of money, do a little research before you write that check. And then when you do write that check, make sure that you've got a record. Hang on to that because it could come back to bless you yet again come tax time. Anyway, guys, that's what I have for you as far as this goes. A good average percent to maybe set aside for charity. A lot of experts say is in the ballpark of 10 to 15%, but you decide for yourself. No one can tell you how much you should be giving. You have to look within and decide what's best for you. Don't cut off your nose to spite your face. You'll be able to do more in the long run once you're on a more solid footing if you're still saddled with debt and trying to prepare for future expenses. And you can leave your thoughts below the video on YouTube. And as always, you can reach out to me with any questions at fussandfinance@gmail.com.